Hello, everyone. Welcome to our virtual presentation of Chunky with author-illustrator Yehudi Mercado and our moderator for tonight, Raina Telgemeier. We do have signed copies of Chunky available, and you can get them by clicking on the green purchase button directly below the viewer's screen. It'll take you to our website where you can complete your purchase. Just make sure to write signed copy in the order comments when you're checking out your cart. So we have that reserved for you. Also, this event includes an audience Q&A. So send us your questions by using the Ask a Question feature at the bottom of the screen. You can also vote for any questions you'd like for our guests to answer, and they'll make their way to the top of the list. And with that said, let me briefly introduce our speakers and then we can get started. So Yehudi Mercado is a former pizza delivery driver and art director for Disney Interactive. Currently a writer, artist, animator. His books include Sci-Fu, Hero Hotel, Rocket Salvage, and Fun, Fun, Fun World. He's currently show-running the Hero Hotel podcast and writing and directing an original animated short for Nickelodeon. And joining him tonight is the lovely Raina Telgemeier, the author and illustrator of the #1 New York Times bestselling graphic novels, Smile, Drama, Sisters, Ghosts, and Guts. All right, so I'm going to give the stage off to you guys. Enjoy the talk, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Vromans.
Yeah, thanks, Vromans. Thanks for having us.
Hi, Yehudi.
Hi, Raina. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. Got my convention banner.
You do.
Make you feel at home at a convention.
And this is your book launch event, right?
That's Chunky. Right. Yeah.
Hooray.
Good old Chunky. Should I share my PDF?
Absolutely.
All right.
So I think what we're going to do first is we're going to read a chapter from Chunky. And then after that, Yehudi and I are going to have a couple of questions between us. We're going to chat for a bit. We're going to do some drawing for you guys. And then at the end, you'll have a chance to ask us questions. And like we already said, please type your questions in the Q&A box, which is down at the bottom of your screen. And we'll get to those at the end. But first.
And now for a dramatic reading of Chunky. And Raina, you're playing Chunky, right?
I think so, if I can ever find out where it is on my screen.
Oh, can you not see it?
Nope, but I've got it in front of me, so I can look at it on my screen.
All right. Page 14. So Hootie enters his bedroom looking all sad. He picks up these action figures that don't match. He goes, see? I can have my own fun without Winnie and Yanni. Pulls out a rubber chicken. Live from New York. It's Saturday night. I pick up some drawing tools. Scribble, scribble, scribble. I draw a little Chunky. Huh? And then Chunky says,
hey!
Perfect. Hey, I've seen you before. Are you supposed to be like my imaginary friend or something?
Think of me more like an imaginary mascot.
Mascot, huh? Okay.
You know, a normal kid would take a little more convincing. It's a good thing you're not normal.
Is it?
I'm Chunky.
Come on, you're not that big.
No, my name is Chunky.
I know, I was just kidding.
You're funny.
But you can call me Hootie.
I'm your biggest fan. Go, Hootie, go.
Hootie, stop jumping. Come down. Daddy and I want to talk to you. Uh-oh. So I'm guessing this is like normal imaginary friend rules where no one else can see you?
Yeah, I can make faces at you and no one will see how silly I look.
Don't plop on the couch. You'll break the tuna can. We actually had a tuna can under our couch. Should we begin? Am I in trouble? No, not at all. Because of your health issues, it is important that you watch your weight. That's the good thing about being fat. You can watch your weight from any angle. Mommy and I want to sign you up for sports. Comedy sports? What's comedy sports? Never mind. Don't you have to be athletic to be an athlete? I was never the biggest player. My coaches told me many times that I was too small for the team and that I would never be as good as my brother. but that's what made me try even harder. These are the different leagues you can sign up for. You guys know that anytime I try any physical activity, I wind up twisting my ankle or breaking my pinky. Pick one and we'll see how it goes. Let's play
Baseball, baseball, baseball.
Yeah, baseball. Babe Ruth was pretty fat and he was good at baseball.
Yeah!
You're going to have to clear some room for all the trophies I'm going to win. Oh. And there you go.
Oh
That's
gosh.
chapter 1 of Chunky.
Nice. So I want to talk to you about your book, which is billed as a memoir. And that means it's a story about your life. But I don't imagine that you actually had like a big furry friend who was riding around on your shoulders when you were a kid. But I'm curious if you did ever imagine yourself talking to somebody.
Usually not like like a classic imaginary friend, but I did get really attached to like stuffed animals and pets. Like, it was funny because, me and my, 3 kids, me and my 2 sisters. My sisters always had to share a room. So there were 2 girls, and then they always hated, that they had to share a room. They thought I was lucky that I got to have my own room, but I always felt kind of left out having my own room. So that's why I had a lot of time, like imagination time by myself. So, yeah, lots of drawing.
Did you draw or like write out dialogue between yourself or between characters, or like how did that start?
Yeah. I would sort of create these characters, and sort of like one that I like had as a kid was this cow named Elroy that I would like draw over and over again. And actually that's one of the first little doodles that Hudi's drawing in there. And he almost became like my id, like things I would want to say in a way. So I think that's how that started, of like, transferring like personality through these characters.
Seems like all young cartoonists have some version of this story that they tell our ids. So then where did Chunky himself come from, and when? Because it's been a few years since the events in this book take place. When did Chunky show up?
Yeah, so the book, I guess it was like, rooting around in my brain around 2018. I guess after Sci-Fu came out, and Sci-Fu was like, that was my biggest success. Go ahead.
Can you just quickly tell us what Sci-Fu is in case our viewers haven't seen it?
Yeah.
Okay, so, just a side note.
Sci-Fu is my hip-hop sci-fi kung fu musical. And it's set in the 80s, and it's about a kid who's a DJ, and he wants to be the greatest DJ in the world. And one night he scratches the perfect beat, and it summons a UFO and takes him to a robot planet. So it's sort of like a hip-hop Wizard of Oz is the way I say it.
Such a good elevator pitch, hip-hop Wizard of Oz. Okay, so after this book came out,
and it got, because it got accepted to the Scholastic Book Fair and the Scholastic Book Club, and then I got sort of noticed in the book world instead of just like the indie comics world. And that's when I decided, like, what else can I tackle in the middle grade realm? And I originally thought of, actually, I can show my PDF. Let's see. You can see that PDF. Mm-hmm. So you can see on the green cover on the left. Originally, when I first thought of Chunky, I originally thought of it more like I would be the monster, and that the family was like raising a little monster that sort of didn't fit in and couldn't fit in and had like weight issues. So it was sort of like definitely like once removed from me. And then I got the good advice of like, no, just have you, Hudi, if this is a memoir, make it a memoir, and just have Chunky be like the imaginary friend. And it sort of evolved from there. But yeah, it was around like 2018 that I started to like put together the pitch. And then, when was it? 2019? We went to dinner at New York Comic Con, I think. It was really after that dinner that you convinced me like I need to get this done, and I need to like get this out on paper and like Like you
I'm
really
not
pushed
taking
me.
any credit for your book, but it was a time when everybody was like, we want more comics, we want more real stories about real kids. And
Well, and then you even said like I think maybe it was at a panel we were out together. You were like, yeah, there's no like memoirs like this for boys, like for young boys. And I always joke like, yeah, when will guys get a chance in the comics industry? Like, but
right.
but yeah, it was true. Like there was nothing really in the space. This New Kid hadn't come out yet.
That's true.
Yeah. But
And
yeah,
now it
thank
has.
you. Yeah.
And now you get to join us, and that's so cool.
Yeah.
I'm curious about the fact that your family plays such a large role in this story. So can you talk about what that was like, both for you, for them? Like, how did they feel about it? Have they read it?
Yeah, they've read it. Yeah, it's funny. Like, I mean, because like I always try to put my family in all my stuff. Like even in Fun World, the father in that his name's Gachi, and that's my father's nickname. And I always draw him like a giant muscle man because like to me, like me being so unathletic and then him being like this perfect athlete, like that's the way I always saw him. Like so but yeah, it was definitely interesting like growing up that, you know, because he, you know, from 3 brothers, like his father was a general in the Mexican army, like a real tough guy. And like he literally taught my father and my uncles how to swim by throwing them in Lake Chapala in Mexico. Like that's how he taught them how to swim, just like throwing them in a lake. But so like, you know, growing up, I could feel like, oh, he would want to play sports with me, but I was just like so terrible at them. And like, but thankfully he was also an artist and he had the art supplies around the house. So like I always had access to all the art supplies, and he really nurtured my artistic side also. But yeah, when they read the book, it was interesting because they, you know, it's a memoir and you have to have like story plot points. They were a little irked that they came off as the bad guys. And it was like, no, you're not the bad guys. Like, and then my mom on the phone was like, yeah, but you made us look so pushy. And I was like, no, but you know, that's how parents are. You know, that's how kids feel when their parents are sort of like nudging them to do something. And I sort of talked them off the ledge, you know, feeling irked. And then she like wrapped up the phone conversation by saying like, okay, just tell everyone we're not so pushy. Just tell everyone we're not so pushy. I'm like, okay, you're pushing me to tell everyone that you're not so pushy. Got it. Okay.
And this is the first thing you say in your afterword. It's like
the
end of the story, and then afterward, I just want to say that my parents are not so pushy. So you did your duty as their son. That was really grand of you. And I mean, you sort of have to. I don't really know how to say this without it coming across as dismissive, but you have to simplify certain things.
Yeah.
So even when you're writing characters that are based on people, you sort of have to turn them into caricatures of themselves just so that they read on the page as a character.
Right.
So did you find yourself sort of doing what you described, like pulling, okay, my dad was really athletic, and so you're going to make him like the biggest, beefiest, most strapping man in the world as the character of himself?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And like, and working in animation and like really like in writing other stuff, it's like, yeah, it's all about like, what does that character look and feel like? So like, even like with my mom, she always wears like a visor.
She does.
Yeah.
My mom always wears a visor too. So
nice.
I love that.
Yeah.
Visor moms forever.
And then I decided like, oh, in the bat mitzvah scene, in my sister's bat mitzvah scene, I was like, oh, it'd be funny if she still wore the visor, like at the bat mitzvah, which she did not. But like, I just thought it's like a funny sort of cartoony look. And then even my cousin Leo, you know, he didn't wear his yellow belt like during the bat mitzvah, but like, I always had this picture of him like always like having some sort of sports equipment on. Yeah, it's like, it's really, it's like almost doing the caricature version of your family and sort of boiling them down to what sort of the memories are.
I hope in the end they see that you guys were kind of just a loving bunch and that you still are. And so sometimes writing my memoir is not this, but I try to write memoir that's like a love letter to my family experience and to my childhood, even when we're dealing with difficult subjects. And so here's one for you, because this is my specialty, difficult subjects. I I think stereotypically, like the idea of even having an imaginary friend suggests that you really need a friend. So were you a kid who had a lot of friends, or did you often feel like you were lonely?
Yeah, I think definitely like, being a Mexican Jew in that sort of like the outskirts of Houston, Texas in the 80s, like I definitely felt like I didn't belong in, one particular group. Like there weren't a lot of like Mexicans or Jews like in my school district. So yeah, I felt like a little isolated in that respect. And then I was always like the funny class clown kid, in school, but like I didn't have that many like close friends. So like there was a lot of just like interior time of just me sort of drawing and sort of being alone, it felt like.
So maybe a
Yeah.
story about an imaginary friend is kind of perfect
Yeah.
to tell about that time in your life.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I'm glad that we're friends, because now you can say you have one friend, but
Exactly.
that's not true. You have lots of friends.
Yeah.
So I just want to talk a little bit about like your artwork, because your artwork is so dynamic. You have such a strong visual vocabulary, and your coloring is out of this world. Like I just absolutely love it. And I'm curious if there are creators or artists who inspired your work back in those days and also now. Like who inspired your visual vocabulary?
Ooh, that's a good question. Probably like, I mean, definitely more in the animation realm. And in comics, yeah, Calvin and Hobbes for sure. Like the way he would draw the motion and like, Hobbes like diving, like is like sort of seared in my brain of like how to capture motion. But yeah, Calvin and Hobbes, and then Chuck Jones, he's an animator. Did a lot of like the classic Bugs Bunny, Warner Brothers, like his like facial expressions, I feel like helped me sort of like build up that vocabulary. Yeah.
What about as far as like movies and other types of media?
Oh yeah, I mean anything comedy, Mel Brooks for sure, Saturday Night Live, like we would watch that like when we were supposed to, of course, but like, and then like yeah, any like Airplane, all those like sort of broad comedies were like a huge influence. Like Billy Crystal, like we would listen to like all the comedy albums. So getting like the cadence of comedy was like seared into my brain.
Can you tell the story? I heard you tell this story on a podcast about how you got to know the script of Star Wars so intimately.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So we had moved to Houston from New Jersey in the summer of 77, right when Star Wars came out. And I remember we pulled up into the driveway, I think it was like a 5-day long journey. My father had moved, ahead of time to like set up the house. So we pull up, we're all hot and sweaty. It's summer, Houston. And he's like, okay, you can't come in. Don't go into the house. Like, we'll quickly throw your stuff in the house, but we got to go to the movies. And we're all like, what? And so he took us to Star Wars. And it was just sort of like, I mean, it was interesting that it happened like in conjunction with moving to a brand new city, that it's like then being taken to this whole new world. And it was just like amazing. So like, I think we were like, late and we had to sit in the front row, but I was just like, it just felt like I was bombarded by all the imagery. And my father recorded it on, if anybody's listening from the movie theater, like don't come after him, but he recorded it on cassette tape. So every day we would listen to the first half of Star Wars on the way to preschool, and then the second half on the way back, like every single day. So like we had that movie memorized, like every single the sound effect, every like nuance of language. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
I talked to a lot of artists who describe, especially cartoonists, because we're just sitting at our desks working for hours on end. Yeah. A lot of people I know listen to movies or they listen to TV shows.
Yeah.
And I think this is just such an adorable example of like having done that from the time you were a little kid, where something about the pacing of a movie soundtrack, not just the music, but the dialogue and the sound effects, like that all must have gone into your small brain and somehow impacted the way that you tell stories now. And your stories do feel like they're movies. The pacing, the humor, the action of them. It's just, it always feels like you're watching a cartoon, but it's on paper.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. It's interesting too, because like you'll go back and look at finished pages you've done, and then you hear what you were like listening to while you were drawing that page. So like,
oh, that's true.
Some pages just remind me of The Godfather, or like, things I had on the background while I was finishing that page. Yeah,
I love it. So this one is just sort of an aspirational question for you. I'm sure there's a lot of kids who are going to read this book who feel like they can relate most to the feeling of not being able to fit in and not feeling like they have found their place or found themselves. And so what advice would you give to those kids?
Ooh, that's tough. Yeah. Like part of like the author's note I wanted to do was, like that I said, like, Chunky wasn't about being fat. It's not a book about weight loss or being fat. It's about fitting in. Like the idea of Chunky is like not being able to fit in. So like I wanted to leave kids with the message of like, find your own Chunky. Like find that thing that like lights something up in your brain that makes you want to like do something, accomplish something, that you almost have to like hear someone cheering you on, and like, almost getting that like that little like spark of like joy when you do something. So like I'm hoping like, if sports is what does that for you, then then go after sports. But like, there's all kinds of activities that, and then you can't give up also. Like that's another thing of like I fear some kids now, like there's just so much to do that it's easy to give up on stuff. Like you're not going to be perfect right out the gate. It's all about like accomplishing something. So I feel like, like finding something that sparks that joy in your brain, and then like really like go after it. Yeah. And
it's funny how when you do that, sometimes you find like-minded people doing the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Like it's so in Chunky book 2, I go to summer camp.
Wait, was that a spoiler or was this?
I don't know if it's been announced yet. Well, there's Chunky 2 coming. And I go to summer camp and I meet basically my friend Pepe Guzman, who was a Colombian Jew. Nice. And it was almost like meeting someone with my exact wavelength immediately. So I dive into book 2, but it was almost like meeting a real life Chunky, if you will, like someone who became my cheerleader and my mascot.
Aww.
Yeah.
That's so nice.
But you'll find people like that. And once you find them, you have to sort of like latch onto them and like nurture it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So this is partly a question and partly an invitation for you to show us what your art process looks like for how you created this book.
All right. Can you see the PDF?
I can.
Okay.
It's not big where I'm seeing it, but it might be. There we go. Yes.
There we go.
Nice.
So first is the design process. So I went through several different like iterations of what Chunky would look like, sort of narrowing down on this sort of like mascot look. He used to have a big nose that everyone hated. I thought it was funny, but like, everyone hated that big nose. And then I do my roughs in a program called Adobe Flash, which is traditionally an animation tool. So you're not really supposed to do that, but I'm so fast in it that it helps me like lay out the whole book very quickly. And so I do all the roughs, and I even copy and paste all the dialogue and lay out the whole book like in rough form. And then I ink it on my iPad in a program called Procreate. And that, that one I try to do like in layers, because I work in animation. I think of like scenes as layers. So like, as you can see, like you can see through the lines that I drew the rest of the door, even though like you probably won't see the whole door.
Mm.
And then I hand it off to my flatters, and I want to shout out to my amazing flatters, Zorlita Mary Bellamy, Andrea Bell, Sophia Hudis. They are my elves to my Santa's workshop. So like I hand off my inks to my flatters, and then what they do is they do I give them like a model sheet. And so they fill in all the skin tones and all the shirts, all the sort of like standard colors. And then I take the flatted, and then I do all the sweetening. So I add all the shadows and the lighting effects, and I sort of like nudge and rearrange stuff, move stuff around. Basically all the finishing touches. Yeah.
It's fun to see how people work. I work a completely different way.
Yeah.
It's not that different, except it's all on paper, which means I do a lot of erasing instead of just moving stuff around. But but our brains probably work in similar ways, and that part is really cool. Yeah. So next we're going to have you do a drawing for the audience. And for this part, we're going to ask the audience to participate. So everybody who's watching, you can do this in the comment box or in the chat, actually. You don't have to do the Q&A part for this. You can just use the comments. We're going to have Yehudi draw Chunky. Yehudi, are you still there?
He seems to have logged off accidentally.
He logged off accidentally. Okay.
All right, let me bring him back
screen sharing. So, I don't want to explain it to him or to the audience while he's not here because he doesn't know what he's doing either. I tried to keep it a surprise. So stand by, everybody. We have lost Yehudi and Chunky and technical glitch.
All right. Okay, let's see if we can get him back on. There we go.
This is what makes it fun.
Yeah, this is how you know it's live, right?
Okay, so Yehudi, I didn't spoil it yet for the audience. It would be funny if I had, and then I'd be like, hey, guess what? We're going to surprise you. What we're going to do is you're going to draw Chunky, and I'm going to have the audience give us some prompts. These are the prompts, audience. Are you ready? Please type them into the chat box. Number 1, we need a setting. Any setting you can think of. Your wildest imagination is welcome here. And Rira is going to be the one to choose from your comments what you're going to draw. The second thing we would like is a sport. Any sport. Go crazy with this. Think way outside the box because Yehudi and Chunky played a lot of different sports in this book, but we want to challenge them. And number 3 is a random object. Anything you can think of that doesn't have to do with the sport, preferably. So if you're going to do volleyball, maybe a frying pan. And if you're going to do football, so just something completely different. So Rira is going to have the fun job of choosing from all of the suggestions that are currently coming in.
And you can see my screen, the Photoshop?
Yes, you can. And you've done yourself a solid by writing down these 3 prompts, and then we're going to give you what we have chosen. Try to make them as unfitting together as possible.
Okay.
As challenging as possible.
So the first setting, I'm going to just pick a random one. Skate park. And that was sent in by Margot.
All right.
And then for sport, high diving was sent by Lauren.
Oh my gosh.
That's going to be very interesting.
All right.
Okay. And then random object. Let's go with toothbrush from Pat. Have fun.
Yeah. All right. Ooh, okay. So now we got to do the setting.
And
yeah, I like the idea of it.
This is how you know that this is happening in real time and that you haven't had a chance to think this through in advance. Because sometimes cartoonists cheat and we do a lot of prep work and know what's coming. And this is how you know that's not the case. Do you see it in your mind as you're getting the prompts come in? Do you start to imagine
Yeah,
what's going to happen, or are you currently like clueless? What's going to happen?
a little bit of both.
Good.
No, but
okay.
it definitely like when the idea of high dive. Of course, you want to do the sort of high angle.
Yeah.
Of what you're going to jump into. But
I get to be a participant right now. Usually, I'm the one who's being challenged to come up with things.
Yeah.
Oh,
she's on the other foot. Do you have a suggestion?
No, I'm just imagining how this action and the cartoon that you're going to write based on this action is going to work eventually.
I know. I like this.
And what program are you drawing with?
This is Photoshop. I don't normally do like the loose sketches in Photoshop, but like I feel like it's easier to do this than to try to do the iPad.
So you're working on a Cintiq right now? Is that right?
Yeah. The
Okay.
Cintiq 16-inch, I believe. Yeah.
Okay. So if anybody's unfamiliar with a Cintiq, it's kind of a computer monitor that doesn't have a computer attached to it. You attach it to your regular computer, and then it's a screen specifically that you can draw on. And it comes with a little stylus, and you just draw right on your screen. It's kind of like before we had iPads. This was the only tool available that had that technology. But instead of just being an iPad, it is a massive instrument. It's really powerful. The pressure sensitivity on the pen is fantastic.
Yeah.
So a lot of cartoonists and animators will use this tool. I'm describing it because I want to give Yehudi some time to like work without feeling like he has to narrate everything. And also because you're working on it, so you can't actually show it to us. I guess I could bring my screen over to where mine is located, but that would be mine.
Oh yeah, do you color on your Cintiq?
I do. I do all of my work on paper. So instead of using digital tools, I use pencils, and then I use a brush that I dip into India ink. So what you're doing now, I do on actual paper. And then I scan all of my work, just the black and white line art, into a computer. So what I get looks a lot like what you're currently creating. And then I'll do like my cleanup there. So any stray lines, any mistakes that I've made, anything that needs to be moved around, I do it sort of like you at this digital stage. It's just that I start with the analog tool. But I mean, when we were growing up, we didn't have access to this sort of thing. I would have loved to have tools like this.
What's interesting is, my mother worked at the Houston Independent School District in the Department of Technology, and we had access to a thing called the Koala Pad, which was kind of like the first like Intuos. So I could draw on the computer with like this tablet. You couldn't see the screen on it, so it was like one of those like separated. But it's pretty handy to be able to like use those tools at an early age.
So we have a couple of questions from the audience. Shall we, see if we can answer them while we look at your drawing? All right. So this question is from Andy. Chunky seems more autobiographical than your past work, though what do I know? Maybe you have rap battled evil robots. How was it writing a story that pulled more on personal experience?
It was fun. Like it was nice to be able to, I'm all the stuff I write and draw, like I try to have, characters of color and, represent, underserved demographics. So it was nice to be able to show like a Mexican Jewish family, in a different light than what you normally see. But, and then being able to like, do stuff from Houston was fun. Drawing like the Astrodome, which was a big thing growing up. I think I don't don't think the Astrodome exists anymore, which is sad. But yeah, going back and looking at like the Charles chips that we used to have delivered, like it was fun adding those little touches from my childhood.
Yeah. This question is from Melissa, and Raina, you can also answer this question for us. If you were an animation character, who would you be?
Like one that already exists, or one that we're making up from our heads?
Both, I guess,
okay.
Or either.
Yehudi, if you have one that you can think of, you can go first.
I would be. I mean, I think I'm most like Bobby Hill from King of the Hill. I believe we have the same DNA. So I would say Bobby Hill.
I know this one. This one's easy for me. My avatar on my Disney Plus account is who I would be, which is Jessie the cowgirl from Toy Story.
Oh, nice.
When I saw the second Toy Story, where we're introduced to Jessie, and she's like super spirited, and she's super like, yeah, everything. I'm just friends, and I just want to like ride around on my horse and like kick butt. And then she has this really sad backstory, and you just empathize so much with her and feel for her and her struggles. And I love her so much, but I also feel like somehow someone got into my brain and like told my story. Not that I was discarded by my owner in a box when she got to be too old, but just that feeling of like people that you care about just kind of deciding that they don't want you around anymore and stuff like that's. We've all been through something that feels like that, especially when you're younger, and friends just don't make sense when they do stuff like that. So
yeah,
that was a long-winded answer to say that Jessie is my favorite character.
Yeah, Jessie's so great.
Oh, and Joan Cusack, who voiced her, is just marvelous and brilliant.
Yeah, that character was definitely shortchanged in the latest one.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I hope no one who was part of that movie is listening to the stream. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Controversial. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Looks awesome so far, Yehudi. Yeah. All right, let me pull up another question. This question is from Keaton, the cool guy, and it's for you, Raina. And I think it's a pretty quick question. How long do you live in San Francisco for?
Well, I was born here. And then when I was in my early 20s, I moved to New York, and that's where I went to college. And then I spent 16 years there, and I moved back here in 2015. So I have lived in the Bay Area for a total of 27 or 28 years altogether. Oh, I'm very, very old, so I'm not going to tell you exactly how many years in. Yeah, you can do the math if you must. But.
All right. And Yehudi, you're from Texas, right? Originally? Yeah.
I was born in Mexico City. Then at 3 months, we moved to the States. We went to New Jersey first because that's where my grandfather lived. And then we moved to Houston.
Oh, Melissa in the chat also says, I'm from Texas too. So, woo.
Right on, Texas.
Yeah. All right. Next up, it's a question from Bastion. How did you learn to use your artistic side? What started it?
I think having access to all the art supplies around the house is really helped foster it. Seeing my father's paintings and sketches all over the place definitely helped. So yeah, just really like doodling and practicing, and then reading comics and the Sunday funnies and sort of trying to recreate those. It's kind of how I got started as a kid. But you mean professionally, or?
Let's say yes.
Yeah, let's just say yes.
My first full-time professional job was in video games, doing like character designs and animation. And that I got because I was taking an animation class at Austin Community College in Austin, Texas. And I was doing my demo reel, and a recruiter saw my sort of like little animation, and he liked it and said I should call them for an interview for an art position. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So next question is from Lauren. What's the most impactful animation or illustration you've encountered?
Ooh, most impactful. That is a good question. I would say, the Iron Giant, the movie The Iron Giant was pretty impactful. And also I would say Aladdin. What year was that? 1992, 93, Aladdin, with Robin Williams. Yeah. I would say when I saw that, that's when I knew you can do like really funny comedy and beautifully fluid animation, like all in one. Like that, because that one was it felt like it was one of the first that was like a straight up comedy. Like I feel like that movie was very impactful. Yeah.
How about you, Raina?
Gosh, I'm just going to steal those two.
Iron Giant is great.
So great. And it kind of came out of nowhere too. I had no expectations for it and saw it in the theater when it came out. And that was, I think, in 1997. And it just, or maybe 98. Anyway, it blew me out of the water. And
yeah, because it felt like there was no trailers for it. Like you just it was almost like the secret. Yeah.
At the time, it was kind of like Disney just had absolutely cornered the market on animated films. And meanwhile, a bunch of other people just went and made this movie. And there it was. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is one of the best animated movies it's ever been.
Yeah.
I loved Aladdin so much too, that it's partly the reason why I chose to go to the college that I did.
Oh, yeah.
I had the Art of Aladdin book, and I just read it over and over again and was really, interested in all the creators. And the bio in the back of the book mentioned something that stayed in my head for years, and I didn't even realize it. But one of the guy that wrote the book helped to establish one of the animation programs at the School of Visual Arts in Manhattan. Oh. And that was in his bio at the back of the book. So as a 14-year-old kid or whatever, I just read the book and was like, oh, interesting. And then years later, when I was finally looking for where I wanted to go to college, I was like, School of Visual Arts. That's interesting. I know I've heard that from somewhere, but I don't remember why I know that name. And then later I realized it was because this writer of this book had this bio. So I'm like, oh, the little connections that you make that have a huge impact on your life that you would never predict.
Yeah.
But that's part of what made me want to go to that school. And that school has a great cartooning program there. So that was the other reason that I decided to go. Can I just comment on your drawing while we're here?
Yeah.
Look at this. Look at what you just whipped out. On the spot.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Is he on a skateboard?
Yeah. So I'm picturing. Yeah.
Nice.
He skateboards off the high dive.
Yes.
Does through, into the empty pool and then over to the half pipe.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Okay. I love that at the end of Sci-Fu, you list a soundtrack. You've got a bunch of old school hip hop tracks that you're this is the soundtrack for this book. What is the soundtrack of Junkie? What songs would have been the soundtrack to this time, this place in your life?
This time, yeah, definitely. Ooh, that's a good question.
Are they jock jams?
That's what it would almost be funny covers of the jock jams.
Oh.
I feel like I don't even know the names of those, but yeah, the Doctor Who one. I feel like that's a classic jock jam. But yeah, And also like marching band, sort of drum corps music, like that kind of feeling, like you're at a sporting event. Like I feel like that would be the soundtrack to Chunky. Yeah.
All right, so we have time for a couple more questions. All right, so I saw a good one from Joshua earlier. So this question's from Joshua. If you could work for 1 year in any field outside of comics, what would you do?
Ooh.
And let's say that you don't have to be good at it. Just
outside of comic, well, and then I'll say outside of animation also.
Sure.
Yeah. Like, yeah, anything away from what I normally do. Ooh, man.
I think I have one.
Yeah, go ahead.
I always wanted to be a meteorologist because I think weather is super interesting. And I grew up in San Francisco where there's just like one kind of weather pretty much all year round. It's like always 65 degrees and it's usually foggy.
Yeah.
And so when I moved to the East Coast, I was like thunderstorms and, snow and all these like heat waves and stuff. And like now I'm a lot more concerned about those functions of our climate. But I think studying them is really interesting. And when I was in high school, I actually considered it briefly, but I was so bad at science. Like I got such bad grades. There was too much math involved and too many like scientific equations. But
yeah.
I still have a dream that someday I'll be like a professional tornado chaser or that I'll get to be like a weather girl on TV because that sounds so cool.
Nice. Yeah, I would say something like in restaurants, like cooking, like a chef, something like that. I like to cook. I like to cook for my family when we have family get-togethers. I don't think I'm a very good cook, but like, but that's something like it would be interesting to like study more and like become really good at. Yeah, I feel like that would be good.
I don't have my own. People in the chat are talking about like Texas weather and North Carolina weather because you were talking about being the weather girl, Raina. So yeah.
Yeah, LA doesn't have much weather. Yeah.
No.
It's extremely hot right now.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so I think we have time for 2 more questions and then we can say it's a wrap.
I have a question for Raina.
Oh yeah, go right ahead.
How's the have you had the ice cream yet? Have you had your special ice cream or
is this an opportunity for me to make a plug?
Yes.
Okay. Well, there's a company called Salt and Straw and they are an ice cream shop I think they have 20 locations in the States. They're based out of Portland, Oregon, but they've got a shop in Los Angeles. They've got one in San Francisco. They've got one in Atlanta. And they did a special featured flavor series this month called Rad Readers. And so 5 Scholastic authors were asked to create ice cream flavors. And I got to be one of them. So I developed an ice cream flavor called Words and Pictures. And that was inspired by what goes into making comics. It's ideas, it's scribbling, it's writing stories, but it's also drawing. And so the ice cream is meant to look like paper, vanilla ice cream, pencils and erasers. So it's chunks of yellow and pink cake. And then the writing and drawing is stracciatella, which is like a chocolate ribbon that goes through the ice cream. It's super delicious. And I was so flattered to be asked to do that. So I have tried it. It's so tasty. Yeah. And I keep taking pictures. I'm like, oh, look, here's my mom eating my ice cream. And like, here's my dad going to get a cone. And it's in stores until the end of this month. So just a few more days, but you can also order it online. So look up Smile, Words, and Pictures ice cream. That felt a little like I was shilling, but also it was just so cool. It's probably the coolest
it's amazing
thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. Ooh,
I mean, it sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. That's awesome.
All right. So, we're going to wind down. I think that's a good segue into this question. It's from Keaton again, but I'm going to direct it to both of you. What are you making for your next storybook? So I'm guessing any illustrated work that you're working on next.
Yeah, I'm working on Chunky 2. Chunky Goes to Camp. And then I'm also working on a Shazam middle grade book. Oh, and Sci-Fu too. I just finished. Yeah. So
you're just hanging out, not doing anything interesting.
Exactly.
Right now.
Yeah.
Just totally bored.
Yeah, that's why this whole like pandemic quarantine just felt like it's like gone by really fast because I've just been like working around the clock. Like it's been interesting not having to go to like conventions and like sort of like eat up that time before and after a convention. But yeah, I've gotten a lot done.
Yay. I wish I could say the same. I sort of took the enforced break as a sign that I should maybe slow down a little bit and like not go to so many conventions. And I was between projects anyway, so I was able to just take the time I needed to work on the project I'm working on now, which is a secret. I can't talk about it at all. Sorry. But I am working on 2 projects right now, so there will be 2 books to look forward to at a later date.
Nice. And you have a puzzle, right? You have a puzzle too.
What? You're just asking me to advertise. Yeah,
well,
I do.
It's awesome. Like
puzzle based on my work that just came out from Clarkson Botter. So, but I don't want it to be about me. It's about you. Your book came out on Tuesday.
Came out Tuesday. It's available
I'm so happy
everywhere.
for you.
Thank you very much.
Are you thrilled that it's out in the world now?
Yeah, it's super. Yeah, it's amazing. Like just seeing the reactions and like people tagging me and like kids like messaging me. Like, yeah, it's very fulfilling. And like, yeah, I owe you a lot of it. Like, 'cause you definitely nudged me in the right direction to like complete this book.
You can just buy me an ice cream sometime.
There we go.
And I'll buy you. Too.
Yeah.
Yeah, buy her some ice cream. Yeah.
Everyone else is invited. We're all going to get ice cream after
ice cream
this,
party after this.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much to everyone who tuned in and for throwing in your ideas. Like, it was so much fun seeing you sketch, Yehudi. And thank you so much, Raina, for your lovely questions as well. For those of you who tuned in late, don't worry, a replay of this talk will be available after the broadcast ends, so you'll be able to catch the beginning of it. Just use the same link and you'll be able to rewatch the talk. Also, again, we have signed copies of Chunky available. You can get them by clicking on the green purchase button. It will take you to our website. Just make sure to write signed book or signed copy in the order comments when you're checking out your cart. Yehudi visited our shop, actually. So yeah, it's actually a book that is signed and not a book plate. So come and get them.
And I doodled a little Chunky in each book.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. So
and there's a bookmark in each.
Yes, I heard about that. So there are bookmarks in them. So if you would like a signed copy, just make sure you write that in the order comments. And with that said, I think that's a wrap. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night and stay safe. All right.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.